Hey guys, what's up? My name's Jen. I'm a former flight attendant turned travel professional. Today we are watching Glitter and Lasers. She has been in a lot of controversy lately. We know that with her whole Target escapade and changing the outfits of mannequins and throwing things around in Target and acting a little crazy, honestly. So I am just covering the travel side of Glitter and Lasers. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at her video when everything goes wrong. Travel story time. Knowing Anna, she's quite a dramatic person. It'll be interesting to see if I'm able to detect if she's being over dramatic in anything. And honestly, I'm really curious what her, horror travel story is, because I'm pretty sure she flies like business class and goes on these amazing vacations. So I can't imagine that she would really complain about anything. As always, the original video is going to be in the description down below. So go ahead and take a look at that if you want to see the original video on her channel. Let's go ahead and watch a video. I will be playing it on 1.25 speed just to keep it going along here.
As many of you know, I just got back from a trip to Spain and Portugal. And I'm sure you've seen some lovely shorts where I'm in fabulous dresses, or maybe you've checked out my other channels and seen photos, and it looks like I had a banging time. But in reality, on that trip, every single thing that could possibly go wrong went wrong. And
Let's see if that's true.
I felt like old me would have lost her damn mind, but new me was able to be resilient. And in thinking about this, I thought I would tell you the tale of everything that went wrong, but then also tell you how I dealt with it, so that if you're struggling with resiliency, maybe you'll learn a couple things. So with that, let's get it.
Everything she does is she's been growing and she's so much better than the old person she was, although I'm not sure we really know who the old person really was before that. So I'm talking about resilience. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of sponsorship that's going to be wrapped into this video. I can already feel it.
I had been planning this trip to Europe for months, literally for months. And it was literally scheduled down to like 2-hour increments. And a lot of it was like coordination with partners and with like
2-hour increments for Europe, planning a vacation. That's very, very tight, especially depending on what she's doing. If she was doing photo shoots or different activities, you need wiggle room within your itinerary, and you should have some flexibility within that itinerary too. So right there already, red flag that it's going to be a stressful time.
People to make some really cool things happen that wouldn't be able to happen without them. It all just fell apart. Let's start at the very, very beginning. So we flew to Barcelona. That's where we started the trip. And when I got there, we were all hungry. We didn't really eat anything on the plane. So what did we do? We ordered room service. And you would think that's fairly safe. No. In fact, we all got...
See what I'm saying? But she's complaining about a story. We got there and we ordered room service. First world problem type things. It's just already starting off great. It's hard for me to feel bad for her sometimes just because of this kind of thing.
Food poisoning. Except me, having a sensitive little tummy, had like violently, explosively bad stomach issues. And it was like to the point where I couldn't eat.
Okay, that's a big problem, but I'm curious if they got it from room service or if it was something at the airport in the plane, because it usually takes, a good 12 hours for food poisoning to kick in. I have had really, really bad food poisoning when I was a flight attendant before, and it was probably, looking back, one of the worst trips and times of my entire life. It was awful. So that does suck to be traveling and have extremely bad food poisoning. And I know exactly what mine was. And I can't even, to this day, I can't even eat it. I can't even talk about it. So I do feel for her on that.
Because, what comes up must come down. I was gross.
Did you guys see she still had the tag on her shirt? What the heck? Please do not tell me that she's going to wear this for the video and then go return it. That just kind of feeds into the controversies with her and still having a tag on a shirt and then wearing it and then going to return it afterwards.
And I was really dehydrated. So I wasn't eating, but I was still trying to do everything, but I was sick as hell. And it got so bad
that's really bad to keep pushing when you're super, super sick on vacation. That's the time where you need to really assess, do I need to stop, go to the doctor, take a break, rest. And I totally understand where she's coming from because that is really, really tough to do, especially on a vacation that you paid a lot of money for. But if you guys get travel insurance, that really does help kind of put that pressure off of you. And maybe you can get refunded some of your money or get at least go to the doctor. And maybe just only half a day she had to change up. If she went to the doctor, maybe got an IV to kind of rehydrate herself a little bit or maybe some medicine. But you have to be smart because either you don't take care of yourself and destroy like your entire time, or you can adjust and take care of yourself for a shorter period of time and hopefully recover and get back to your vacation. It is a very tough situation to be in. And I kind of see where this story and all of this is going now. But I think the biggest issue is not canceling things in her itinerary to recover, because food poisoning will really only go at you for a good 24 hours unless you allow yourself to get overly dehydrated, not sleep, and not rest, essentially. So let's see where this ends up going.
That eventually, when we got to Valencia, which was our second city, I was so dehydrated and so malnourished because I couldn't keep anything in that I literally passed out in bed for an entire day. And we were panicked that I may not recover without going to the hospital. So I had a tele appointment with my doctor to try to figure out how to get better. And he was like, you're going to need to see a Spanish doctor, which was also a nightmare. But I ended up drinking like a whole bunch of Gatorade. Really, like,
Imagine
Gatorade
that.
saved my life. So Gatorade, sponsor me, like, for real. But no, I survived on the Gatorade. And I thought I was better.
Dramatic a little bit.
I thought things were better, things were great. And I just wrote it off. I wrote, bumps in the road happen, right? This is it.
Yeah.
The big issue of the trip has happened, because no matter what trip you take, guys, by the way, something always goes wrong. And so I just assumed that this had been the thing that had gone wrong, and that the rest of the trip would just be the magical experience that I planned. And I'd already missed so much. I had, tours and stuff that I wasn't able to go on because I was literally just doing the bare minimum and then falling apart.
Which is not her fault. I mean,
so finally
it happens.
I felt better. And it was great because there was this amazing hike we're going to go on, which you can check out on my adventures channel, which will be up in a little bit. And I was so excited I got to do it. And at the end of the trail, there was this beautiful horse, and I love animals. So I had like a little moment with the horse, and I was like petting him, and it was very sweet and serene. But what I did not know is that apparently my biology decided to like change it up on me. And now I was suddenly severely allergic to horses. And within about 15 minutes after petting this horse, my eyes turned bright red. And slowly the whole like face.
I don't mean to laugh, but like, okay, this is like one of those instances when one thing goes wrong, everything's going to go wrong. And also, I need to also take my own advice, and I'm a lot better now than I used to be. Don't pet animals while you're on vacation. It's really hard when there's dogs and stuff around. For me specifically, I also used to pick up cats and play, pet all sorts of animals. I got bit by a stray cat one time and had to go through the rabies shots. So after that instance, I'm a lot better about petting animals while I'm traveling and on vacation. And she should have just maybe avoided petting the horse. It's so hard if you're an animal lover, but oh man. Okay, let's see.
Piece like this was swollen, and especially on one side, it was so bad I like couldn't open my eye.
She needs to cancel things at this point if she's that sick, and then having this allergic reaction, which again, another day of Benadryl, getting hydrated. And should she have been hiking being as dehydrated as she was? Absolutely not. So maybe she shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place if she was that sick beforehand.
My eye. And I was like, what the hell is going on? I thought I was through all this stress. And that's when I started to feel like a little bit more defeated, right? One issue I can deal with, 2 issues, it's tough. And in this moment, I kind of reflected back to what
you just take some Benadryl though.
Me before therapy, me before working on myself, and me before understanding like what really matters to me.
Is what she's really upset about how she looked because of the allergic reaction. That's kind of what I'm getting. It wasn't like the actual allergic reaction itself. It was her getting puffy and swollen eyes and all of that bothered her. And maybe if she was doing photo shoots, then obviously that would affect that. But that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. So I'm not sure if it was the actual like itchy eyes and all of that, or if it was because of how she looked from the allergic reaction.
Because I think when you know what matters to you, you can let anything that doesn't directly affect that like go. And I would say if you are in the beginning and you don't know where to start, the first place I would start is therapy. I think it's the easiest like way to better your life quickly. And when I say quickly, not as quick.
Here comes that sponsorship that I was talking about. Possibly this trip really wasn't that bad, and these issues were pretty minor to the overall trip. And she's just being a little bit more dramatic about them to tell us that we all need therapy if stuff like this is going to bother us while traveling. I don't know. It's a big stretch to go from having food poisoning allergic reaction while traveling in Spain to you need therapy.
As quickly as you think, because anyone who's gone through therapy knows it does take time, but it is, in my opinion, the most direct route to self-improvement. So I know I've talked about them before, but a great option for therapy if you are just starting out is BetterHelp.com. BetterHelp is actually
I'm just gonna
sponsoring
skip
this
through
video,
this.
and I'm so grateful for their support. But
She always does BetterHelp.
In there where I felt really frustrated. My eye was completely swollen. I was popping bennies, Benadryls, not drugs, Benadryls, and you know, washing my eyes and body copiously to try to get all of the beautiful horsehair off of my body. I'm so sad. I'm allergic to horses. Can we just talk about how crushing that was for me? If you know one thing about me, let it be known that I love animals, and being allergic to any animals just makes me really sad.
Yeah,
so
that
it was
would
a finding
suck.
that I was not happy with. But
Kind of reminds me of when I was just in Thailand. We were at a cooking class, which was so much fun and amazing. And we were cutting peppers, and somehow I got it on my hands and touched my eyes, and my eyes swelled up. I could not open my eyes. I spent like the first part of the cooking class in the back little sink, like just trying to flush my eyes out because they were burning so bad. I can't even tell you like how much it was burning. So that did really suck, but I still, once I was able to kind of get it out and so that they weren't watering as bad, I just continued on with the class. I mean, it was my own fault for touching it and then touching my eyes, but it burned really bad. So I kind of relate to like that, trying to flush your eyes out and having swollen eyes. It didn't ruin my whole trip, and I definitely don't need therapy after that.
As I was scrubbing my face, I was sitting there with my eye completely swollen, thinking about all the things that we had scheduled to shoot that we weren't going to be able to shoot, all the parts of this trip that were now going to be not as exciting because of the fact that my face was swollen and I was now limited. I remembered with like what mattered to me, right? And I realized the most important thing to me right now in my life, and this might change, is my health. And even though there's lots of amazing things I was going to miss out on, missing out on them would mean that I could be healthy. And this is going to become a theme because this is not the last thing that went wrong on this trip. Oh my gosh.
So she was upset that she wasn't going to be able to do the photo shoots, which if you're planning a trip around photo shoots, I get that, and traveling all that way, but it's just hard. It's hard to relate to that, I guess, for other people. So like as just like a regular person that travels watching this, and it's just a little hard to relate to, I guess. I don't know. I don't feel that bad for her, which is maybe not great, but just because she couldn't do her photo shoot.
Honestly doesn't sound so bad, but it just gets worse. So the swelling did not go down completely. It still was pretty swollen on my face. We just put on sunglasses and a shit ton of makeup, to be entirely honest, and still filmed. And honestly, bravo to me for pulling off stuff, but I did take it slow. I didn't like push myself. Now, I took it a little too slow because we went to Algarve and, well, I decided to fall asleep in the sun and got really sunburned. So now I was covered in this like super bad sunburn.
So this was nothing that happened to her. This was another self-induced thing, even more self-induced than the other two things. I mean, the other two things are something that could just happen to anyone. You falling asleep in the sun and not putting on proper sun care. You're in Spain. Hello, the sun is very strong there, and that's your own fault. I can just see it now. Like she popped Benadryl and then just fell asleep in the sun all day. Oh no.
Sunburn. My eyes a little swollen. I'm just getting over food poisoning, so my stomach's not 100%. And we go to this really nice dinner, and I'm talking about the most expensive dinner I've ever been to in my life, at a Michelin star restaurant that I had to get reservations for like 4 months in advance. So I was like super hyped on this dinner. And we get there, and I go to sit down, and the chairs are tiny and they have arms. And I was like, no problem. It's okay. I'll just ask for another chair. So I'm like, excuse me, ma'am, like, this chair is not going to work for me. And honestly, with what I was paying for this dinner, I deserved a chair that fit. Like, this was not like, you know, fancy.
This kind of goes along with going to other countries and expecting them to accommodate you and to a certain extent, yes, but to be upset over it if they can't accommodate you, it comes across as entitled. And this is not the route. Like, I was hoping we have some like crazy travel story time, like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. How can we avoid this kind of thing and talk through different situations while traveling? And something, honestly, I'm having a hard time feeling bad over. She's previously also said in her plus size traveling tips videos that she will assess the chair situation ahead of time and talk to them. If you're making reservations and such an advocate for your weight and where you sit, and it could be a possible concern, you need to be asking them what the chair situation is, or let them know that you might need an accommodation for that chair. Because I guarantee if they might have known 4 months at least in advance, they might have been able to better accommodate her. Let's see if she's able to eat the food or not.
Fancy McDonald's. It was like a nice ass meal. So I deserved a nice chair. And so she's like, hold on, we'll get you another chair. Proceeds to bring me a slightly bigger chair, still with arms. And I'm like, ma'am. She's like, will this work for you?
I mean, they're trying to accommodate her.
And I'm like, ma'am, we said the problem was arms on the side. This does not solve the problem. And she's like, oh, well, this is the only chair we have. And I would literally look at him like, are you telling me you don't have one chair in a super expensive fancy restaurant or in the
They might not.
around it that doesn't have arms? And she's like, yes, ma'am, sorry. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't know if you guys have ever done this. If you're a thick girl, you know, so where like half your butt is on the back of the chair and then you're just like free floating forward.
That's
so
uncomfortable,
like
I'm sure.
But really you're balancing. And did I want to balance for a 9-course meal that was likely to take 3 to 4 hours? Hell no. But did I want to be at this dinner? Well, also kind of no, because again, I'm sunburned. I have a stomach issue and my eye is swollen. But damn it, I hadn't been able to do so many things that day that I was going to do this. So help me, Bob. I was going to do it. So eventually, about 10 minutes later, they bring another chair out that is incredibly uncomfortable, but at least it doesn't have arms. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit here and have this dinner. I'm going to do it.
So she's unhappy with 3 different types of chairs they brought to her.
Like, as the meal goes on, I feel progressively worse. So that by the end of the meal,
she probably had like sun poisoning and was probably actually not feeling well at all. On top of already being dehydrated, pumped up with Benadryl. Come on.
Terrible. Like, there's no other word for it. I feel awful. And I ignore it. I ignore it because I'm like, everything's gone wrong.
But I thought her health was her top priority. She's so contradicting. Like, it's hard to even believe that it was this big of a deal.
I'm going to eat my fancy meal because that's what I want to do. And I lost like sight of like what I needed to focus on. Because looking back, I should have just gone back to the hotel because your girl was going to throw up later. That's the plot twist. Actually, not a plot twist. But I ended up being sick again. And it wasn't from the food, guys. The food was amazing. Everybody else enjoyed it. I had a great time. It's just my body was like under siege. And I will say,
you had sun poisoning.
My health has been great. But it's also led to me like pushing out of my comfort zone a lot, which means I bump up against some things that are inaccessible to me still until I figure a couple other things.
I don't think your health or your size had to do with getting sunburnt though and laying out in the sun too long. Also had nothing to do with you getting food poisoning or touching the horse and being allergic to it. Like, those are just things that could happen to anyone and not necessarily to do with your current condition or health. I struggle with if she is kind of putting it back on her boundaries of what her weight allows her to do and not do, because those things could have happened whether she was super skinny or bigger than she currently is right now. That's something that could happen to anybody. Blaming it on you pushing your boundaries and doing that had nothing to do with that. I feel like that's going to deter people a little bit to kind of blame it on that. I definitely don't agree with that. And then you didn't have a chair. I guess that is part of would be the only thing that would be like she was outside of her comfort zone, but they tried to accommodate her. I mean, three different chairs. They finally found one that didn't have the arms, but then she claimed was not comfortable. It's just like, I just get a little bit of a vibe that she's a little bit hard to please, but I get like at that point, she's probably so over everything that it just was another thing on top of what already was going wrong.
And that's what had happened on this trip is I never let myself get better. So I just got.
That's what I said.
Speaking of getting worse, the tale of the worst trip over and ever is not over. Once we got to Lisbon, which was our next city, it started with sinus issues and not being able to sleep and developed into a full-blown chest infection. So I actually spent most of Lisbon,
This literally goes back to me saying that it's better to miss half a day or 1 day of your trip than to push through and having this whole downfall of a trip and getting extremely, extremely sick. So again, with her health being her top priority, and then she's done nothing to to help herself get better during this trip. That's just like, I hope it was a big lesson for her to learn. And hopefully you guys can take away from this is if you get sick or you're not feeling well, you need to take that time to recover because your body's already exhausted from traveling, and it could just get progressively worse if you don't take care of it when you start to feel it. I know it's hard when you spend a lot of money on a trip, but get that travel insurance and that should help a little bit with that.
I just slept. I didn't even eat at restaurants. I don't know much about the food of Portugal. Actually, I do because my grandpa lived there. But on this trip, I did not enjoy it. I did eat the hotel's rotisserie chicken 3 times, and it was delicious. No regrets. But
that's nice and bland too, just like chicken.
And eventually, it started to kick into me that I was pushing too hard. And I wish I'd gotten to this point earlier, and I wish I had maybe accepted help. Like maybe I'd seen a doctor in Spain rather than just doing a telehealth appointment with my doctor, who did recommend that I see a doctor in Spain, but I was too proud. Again, I'm learning.
So she didn't take medical advice either, which would have probably really helped her, especially if she needed some medication.
Learning and growing through all of these experiences as well. But I finally realized at the end that if my health was the most important thing, every choice I'd been making was against the thing I wanted to support the most.
Okay, she at least recognizes that.
And what I learned from this trip and about my own resiliency is that sometimes making the right choice sucks. Like sometimes making the right choice for your life and your progression is not fun and it's not good.
Especially when it comes to a big vacation, especially when it comes to that.
And I know we talk a lot about like self-care and like, you know, all the fun things that are associated with self-care, like face masks and spa days. But there's also an element of self-care that is like deeply depressing and sad. The best self-care I could have had is to just chill out and not do anything for a couple days at the beginning of this trip and let myself really heal. But I didn't listen to myself, and I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And I knew that it wasn't aligned with my own goals in any way. It was just purely focused on having fun. But sometimes the right choices aren't fun. And when I finally let myself rest, I realized how much damage I'd done because I didn't stop, right? Because I just kept pushing my body.
I wonder who she was also traveling with, because if they continued to push her as well, that just probably did not feel great to feel pressure to keep going or to do these photo shoots, to do these hikes and that kind of thing. You need to make sure you're traveling with people that will recognize when you're struggling and be able to help you and assist you, or solo travel, so you can just take it on your own, take breaks when you need to. Just a thought that comes up. I wonder who she was traveling with that might have been pushing her a little too much, unless it was totally self-induced, but I could see it might have been a little bit of both.
And my body got weaker and weaker, and eventually I got a chest infection. And I think at the end of the day, I walked away from the trip. I could have been really upset, right? I planned this 4-month trip. I worked so hard.
It seemed like she was really upset. I mean, she made a whole video about it. Although the video was to get a sponsor, but it was so bad that she made a sponsored video to get therapy afterwards. I mean,
and everything. I booked all these amazing experiences. Half of them I didn't get to do. In fact, the one thing I really wanted to do up and got canceled on the one day I felt good. So that also, was a wrench. But
when I used to be a flight attendant, there would be these trips where one delay would happen and then another delay would happen and then something else would happen. It's just like the snowball effect that for some reason it just all happened at once. And it kind of feels like this is one of those trips, which is totally sucky, but that thing getting canceled, not her fault. So maybe it was weather related or something to do with the guide or whoever was putting it on.
What I realized at the end of the day is what I learned from this trip.
Which is why flexibility in your itinerary can be very nice.
And it's also sometimes terrible to have to admit that. I know I talked a little bit in the beginning of this video about how this was going to be about resiliency, and you're probably like, Anna, you didn't do the right thing. Guess what? That's going to happen all the time. I'm going to do the wrong thing probably once a week at least, probably once a day, honestly. That's part of being human. But I think resiliency is about taking those experiences that we fail at or make mistakes at or don't go the way we planned, getting up from them, and then changing our behavior so they don't happen again. That important piece of changing our behavior is things will always happen, right? But if you're always learning and growing, you can at least be confident that you got something out of that terrible experience. So even though I was sick all the way through Europe, it's going to change the way I plan travel.
All the way through Europe. I mean, she went to Spain and Portugal. So at least it wasn't like a month-long journey through all these countries, and it was just this portion. Maybe she'll have an opportunity to go back and do those photo shoots and stuff that she might have missed out on. It definitely could have been worse. You just need to bring it all into perspective. And if you're having a trip like this, managing your expectations and maybe going into a vacation without any expectations, with that built-in flexibility of your itinerary, things can go a lot smoother and you won't be disappointed. And this happens all the time for like people that go to Disney World. They're expecting so much. They have so much pressure on their family to go to these rides, this ride and that ride. And then this ride's closed for the day, or they didn't get a chance to do this, and it's just devastating to them. And if they would have managed their expectations, is something I talk about a lot, they might have gotten more out of the trip and have been less disappointed in the end. It's hard when you're excited about things, but just make sure that you're forgiving to yourself if something like a sickness or something happens like that. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that situation, and then preventing things from happening when you can prevent them, like putting on sunscreen, not falling asleep in the sun all day, that kind of thing.
It's going to change the way I listen to my body, and it's going to make it easier for me to tap out when something's not good. My own pride got the best of me on this trip. It did. But it's not going to get the best of me. What I'm learning from it, well, it doesn't suck at all. So with that, guys, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
All right. Well, unfortunately, I feel like we didn't get as much out of that video as I was hoping we would. So sorry about that. I didn't watch it ahead of time. I guess in the end, manage your expectations, be forgiving and flexible with yourself if something happens as far as getting sick or a tour cancels or something like that. Getting that travel insurance ahead of time will also help if you do get sick. So those kind of things can definitely help. Or if you're traveling with someone that's sick and not feeling well, the best thing you can do is take a break as soon as that starts to happen and possibly recover and be able to go on the rest of your trip instead of dragging it out like she kind of did and, kind of destroying the entire trip because she doesn't feel good. And little things that maybe weren't that big of a deal felt like a bigger deal to her because she was already not feeling well and under the weather and kind of worn down. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.